Welcome back to Earstravaeant Adventures. I'm Abby, and along with Mackenzie and Rachel, we are your devoted guides to the captivating worlds of Disney, Universal, and beyond. Tune in every other week as we uncover a universe of wonder and cherished memories. Welcome aboard, fellow adventurers. This week, we're recapping the Disneyland Half Marathon weekend. This episode of Earstravaeant Adventures is proudly sponsored by Wave of a Wand Travel, your go-to experts for family theme park vacations. Whether you're dreaming of exploring the Wizarding World, embarking on an enchanting kingdom adventure, or discovering underwater paradise, Wave of a Wand Travel has you covered with their insider knowledge and hidden gems. Say farewell to the stress of trip planning and embrace a journey filled with joy, laughter, and wonder by reaching out to a Wave of a Wand Travel agent today. Visit their website at www.waveofawandtravel.com or give them a call at 201-401-5378 to let the magic begin. When it comes to family theme park travel, Wave of a Wand Travel is the trusted name that turns your dreams into reality. Now let's immerse ourselves in enchanting tales and unforgettable moments on Earstravaeant Adventures.
Yay!
Yay!
How's everybody?
Run Disney times!
Yay! And I have my cup from the race, so I'm
nice.
Ready.
I have my Disneyland shirt.
How many Run Disney events have you guys done?
What?
How many Run Disney events have you done?
Oh my god. I was trying to count the other day. Events or weekends? Because I feel like that's a
weekends.
Weekends, I'm talking, yeah.
I've done 3.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 24
events.
Wow.
Weekends,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So events is more because some of those are dopey, some of those are challenges, but yeah. My gosh, that's a lot.
Yeah. So tell us what Run Disney is.
Run Disney is exactly what it sounds like, where you run at Disney. I appreciate that they didn't come up with a super clever name to confuse people. Very simple. Excuse me, I'm getting over from a cold and all kinds of a mess. Run Disney started out at Walt Disney World, expanded to Disneyland Paris, and then it closed at Disneyland. Then COVID closed it. Well, it closed at Disneyland before COVID. I think it was like 2017.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother story. But it closed at Disneyland Paris, then it reopened post-COVID at Walt Disney World, and it just reopened at Disneyland. Yay!
Yeah, and they added a new event for this upcoming season.
Oh, right, Halloween one. Yeah. So Run Disney, it's lots of different events. It can be a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, a full marathon, a challenge if you do multiple events and you run around the parks and Disney property, or in the case of Disneyland, you run around Anaheim. It's a lot of fun, and you PR and fun. Don't expect a normal person PR. PR and fun.
So, okay.
Exactly.
Are you just...
I was going to say, and one thing that is coming back with the new Disneyland event, it looks like, is fun runs, which have not come back to Walt Disney World since the pandemic, but those are your kids' runs. So
yeah, those did come back this past weekend. Yes, they did. I don't have kids, so I did not participate in those. So I won't be giving you on the ground feedback for those, but they did.
No. And if you are looking for them, they're at Disneyland, not Disney World. So
yeah.
All right, so let's talk like pre-race. How do you enter? Do you have to be a club member? How does that work?
So for this one, you actually had to register really, really far in advance. It was like 11 months or something really crazy. Usually it's not that, but Disney currently does. It's not a lottery, but it kind of is. So everybody the general public can register on the same day, and it's craziness. You're entered into a virtual queue, and then it's just luck of the draw how fast you get out of the virtual queue, and you register just like normal. We can have a whole other episode about Club Run Disney because Abby and I'm sure, have the similar opinions on Club Run Disney, but
yes,
Club Run Disney is a paid membership where basically you get preferential treatment. And they get to register a week earlier. But depending on what level of Club Run Disney you have, you could get guaranteed entry. So it's not as stressful. With general registration, it's that virtual queue. That's why it's not a lottery, but it is, because you never know what place you'll be in the virtual queue. And once you get through the virtual queue, your events could sell out. I have been so lucky that everything I've wanted, I've been able to register for. But Abby
has not
did not get to go to Disneyland, but she tried to register for Dumbo. Dumbo was sold out, so she registered for the 10K and a half. Right? That's what you did?
Yes.
Yeah. So she was doing Dumbo, just not officially.
Right. Which is frustrating. Yeah, it's a frustrating process. It is a lot like the days that Disney promos drop, where you get yourself in queue and you watch the orbit around Space Mountain, and then you wait for your turn in line and hope that what you want is still available. Honestly, it gives you flashbacks to getting Taylor Swift tickets, or not. In my case.
I haven't had to deal with getting Taylor Swift tickets, but I feel like
I attended. I was unsuccessful there too.
All right. So far in advance, what's the fee like?
Well, the registration cost it's really expensive for races. Disneyland just raised their prices for their events, but they added stuff. I think it's like I was like $109 for yoga and just shy of $400 to do Dumbo. And Dumbo Double Dare Challenge was registration for the 10K and the half marathon. Your registration, so your registration includes the race, your medal, a t-shirt, which is technically not a finisher t-shirt.
3 t-shirts in that case, right? You're doing all 3 races. You get your 10K, your half, and your challenge.
Yes.
Sure.
Post-race refreshments, on-course entertainment, all that good stuff. But it is very expensive. It's the most expensive race I ever do. So, but it's the only race where you can run through Cinderella Castle, Sleeping Beauty Castle, meet characters on course, things like that. So it does have a lot of extra stuff on course that local races or even like the world majors don't have. You're not going to meet Mickey Mouse at mile 25 in Chicago. That's just not going to happen. Well, you might, but it's a knockoff and it's going to be really terrifying.
Right. It's one of those times where terrifying ones. It's not real Mickey.
Yeah. And there's also a platform fee. So like in addition to the $3.95, you have to pay like, I don't remember the company that does the race registrations, but you have to pay a platform fee. It's like $6 or $7. I don't know. Like, why do I have to pay a platform fee? Just put it in my race registration. Like,
right.
Make it an even 400.
Right. We're in this deep. Yes. And of course, right. Rachel said that was the price for the challenge. So if someone were registering just for the half or just for the 10K, it would be different pricing.
Yeah. And I don't know those off the top of my head. And as you ladies know, my eyes aren't working, so I'm not going to pull it up and squint at you, but
okay. we reach out to your Wave of Wand travel agent or Google the Run Disney website and you can find those prices easily.
Well, and speaking of that really quickly, Mackenzie, you may have this to ask me, but we can no longer do race weekend packages.
Bids, yep.
Yeah, pre-COVID, we actually would be able to, during each race weekend, be able to do race packages that included bibs, which was really nice because then you had guaranteed entry, plus your room, plus your tickets and all that good stuff.
And you didn't have to wait in the stressful virtual queue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was a lot better, but we can't do that anymore. We can still, as travel agents, help you book your room and your tickets and everything else, but the race registration, that is still something you have to do on your own, unfortunately.
But we can give you our best advice.
Yes.
Yep. So, okay. So you get your confirmation that you're in the race. When do you book your travel? Right after? Do you wait a little bit? Where did you stay this time around?
Do you want tips for signing up first or...
Tips for signing up first.
Okay. Because it is a strategy.
There's a strategy.
I hate putting this out there because like it is what I do, but also like now more people are going to do it and it's going to be a mess. But I'll have 4 computers open with 4 or 5 browsers open a piece.
Wow.
And Rachel, do you select the race that you want to do, or is that when you enter the queue?
No, you just enter the queue. Because
Any
once
queue.
you enter the queue, it asks you what race you want to register for. So if yoga is the first one that pops up, click on yoga. If it's the 5K and you have no interest in doing the 5K, still click on it because it's going to put you in the virtual queue. And you want like, don't use Safari or Internet Explorer because those browsers are trash. But I do Chrome, I do Chrome Incognito, I do Firefox, I have it on my phone. There's no rhyme or reason to which one you get in first, especially if you're doing it all in the same ones. But what I'll do is I'll start closing out the browsers when one will say I have an hour wait time, one will say more than an hour wait time, one will say 20-minute wait time. So I'll close the ones that don't have wait times. But that's like the only way to really,
Yes.
You have to have multiple browsers open. And like, I wish Disney would fix that, but I mean, at least it runs smoother than Disneyland Oogie Boogie Bash tickets because I was in that queue for 6 hours.
Right. I will say too, there is some gamesmanship. Like Rachel said, I'm not sure there's any rhyme or reason, but some people believe that if you click on the race that is the least popular, and which is, it's subjective and it's your guess. So, if it's marathon weekend, click on the marathon because most people will be trying to do Dopey or Goofy or one of those. And then maybe that virtual queue is shorter. I'm not sure that works, but worth trying.
Yeah. As we all know with Disney tech, there is no rhyme or reason. It is a hot mess, and we just do our best.
That's right.
But for accommodations, I actually get my accommodations before I've even registered for the race because Disney's cancellation policy is super, super flexible. So if I am planning, because I already have my accommodations for Wine and Dine. I haven't registered for Wine and Dine yet. That doesn't happen until next month, or no, March. But I already have my hotel room booked because I want to make sure I get the best rates and the room I want. If you wait until you've registered for the race, the rates are going to go up because now Disney's going to be like, all right, we've got all these people registered. They need accommodations. Let's jack these prices up. And they will do that. Sorry, but that's the reality of rate management. Once there's demand, they raise the rates. So if you get your room now, great. Then you can get a room at Caribbean Beach, request Jamaica building, buy the Skyliner, cool. Because when the race is registered, those rooms are going to be gone. And you're going to be stuck with, I don't know, All-Star. I'm sorry if you're stuck at All-Star. If you like All-Star, fantastic. I would never, do you have that as where to stay? I think we've talked about this before. Well, we're talking about Disneyland, sorry. But I would never stay at All-Star. For Disneyland.
Yeah, that was my question.
Where
did you stay? Where would you not stay, I guess, is my other question.
Yeah, let me pivot to Disneyland because I'm so used to talking about Walt Disney World. So we booked our accommodation as soon as we could, but Disneyland in general, Good Neighbor hotels and everything, they take a while to release their rates. And because the registration was before the next calendar year, we did have to wait a little bit to get our rooms. But this time around, I think it'll be different because the registration isn't as early. So if you already think you want to do Disneyland 2025, some Good Neighbor hotels might have rates. Disneyland hotels won't, but some Good Neighbor hotels will. So we stayed at the West End because Disney hadn't released their course yet. In previous years, the course started and ended at Downtown Disney. So the West End is actually really close to Downtown Disney. It's like a block away. So that's where we stayed. We should have stayed at the JW Marriott because the JW Marriott was at the start and finish line. So it was on, what is it? Catella is kind of the street that divides the Disneyland in half. So on one side of Catella is Disneyland. On the other side of Catella is like all of the Good Neighbor hotels. So the West End is on the side with Disneyland. JW is on the other side, and the other side is where they had the start and finish line. So they threw a wrench on us because everybody thought the start and finish line was going to be at Downtown Disney again, and it wasn't. It was in the Toy Story parking lot. So that was
yeah. And and over at Walt Disney World, it's sort of the same strategy, right? If you were thinking, you said you booked Wine and Dine already. What if you want to do the January marathon weekend? Can't book those yet.
No, January rates don't come out yet. So if you want to do it, just get on that wait list as soon as possible, because Disney used to be able to do room only 499 days in advance, no matter when, but they stopped that. So you can't do that anymore. So marathon weekend registration is in April.
So before it'll open up, typically in May or June. So I would say, most travel agents specializing in Disney will keep wait lists. So definitely reach out to your Alonzi Travel or Wave of a Wand agent so we can keep you on our 25 wait list.
I think that's the only one where registration opens before you can make a room reservation.
For Disney World, right?
Yeah, for Disney World. For Disneyland, I don't know if I think they put registration dates out for 2025, but Disneyland's a little different because you can, your travel agents can book outside of a Disney package as well. Like, I don't know, like I wouldn't necessarily do that, but if you want to have your room, you can do that. So that's what we did. We actually booked through Westin directly because Disney didn't release their vacation packages until August, right? And that's, to me, that's cutting it way too close to have a room for a race weekend. So I booked mine hotel only first because I needed to have a room. I knew how popular this race would be, but it turns out this race, the number of people, what do you call it? The field was half the size of what they do at Walt Disney World. So,
right.
Which makes sense.
Actually a good point, Rachel, when we talk about signups. How many people are allowed in the course? Does it feel like that? Are there points of the course where you wish there were fewer people or more people?
And
we can get right into theming and all that too, and training, but
yeah.
I also want to talk about like arrival times before we move on from like rooms and stuff.
So I'll just briefly. So I'm not a big numbers person, but other people are, and they've posted that it was about half the size, the overall participants at Disneyland than Walt Disney World. I would say that felt accurate, like from being in the corrals and the expo. Like, I'm not saying that it's not crowded, and we will talk about that, but you could definitely tell it was a smaller race because they had corrals A through G, but they let every corral out at the same time because the corrals were smaller. So they had more of them, but then you didn't have mini waves within each corral. So you just were all released at one time. So you could tell it was a smaller field. It was still crowded, but yeah, the 10K was pleasant. It was pleasant. Great. And because we had done the weekend before at Walt Disney World, and we did the half of the half, and that was the half, right? It was horrible. The problem with cutting a course, and this is just a side tangent, the problem with cutting a course, especially with a half marathon, is in a half marathon, you have time for people to spread out and get in their natural paces and things like that. But when you take a half and you squeeze it into a 7-miler, now people are going faster. They're not in the right corrals. They don't have enough time to spread out. So the entire half of a half, you couldn't like move. It was just a sardine the whole time. We were shuffling in places. It was truly miserable. The entertainment was great. I'm glad they didn't cancel it, but it was horrible. With the 10K at Disneyland, it was so much nicer than that because it was an appropriate amount of people on the course. 80%, and we'll go into this, was in the park, but it never felt like I was being jostled.
So,
yeah.
Nice.
So that was nice. So so we talked about when to register and where I stayed. We did yoga. Yoga happened on Thursday, so we had to come in on Wednesday. So we arrived on Wednesday. We did a park on Wednesday because yoga is yoga. Like, it's not a race, it's a relaxation. So we did a park all day on Wednesday. And then Thursday we did yoga. Yoga was beautiful. My problem with yoga compared to Walt Disney World is you didn't get to pick where you were. So they had, if you want to be in Frontierland, go over here. If you want to be in Tomorrowland, go here. If you want to be in front of the castle, go here. So you got to make that distinction. But once they took you, they were like, okay, how many people in your party? Go down this row. How many people in your party? Go down this row. You didn't get to be like, okay, well, I want this mat over here. they just assigned you. Luckily, we got there super, super early. So we were like third row in front of the castle, which is kind of where I wanted to be anyway. But we were on the part of the castle that was at an incline. And I would have preferred to have been behind and like in front of the partner statue where it's flat. But we didn't get to pick. We just were assigned.
What time did that start and what time did you get there?
So
how do you get there?
We walked. Everything is super, super walkable. It was our hotel ended up being about a mile from the entrance to Disneyland, which not bad. We got to the gates at 2:45 because I had to do dining for a client that day. So I'm like, well, we're going to get there early because dining opens at 3 a.m. in California.
Pacific time. Yep.
Yeah. So we got to the gates around 2:45 so I could be situated for my client's dining, did on the app. Great. They opened the initial gate at 3 and then we went up to security. They opened the security at like 3:15 and then you had to go into another queue to get your waivers and wristband. And then they let you into the park at 4. And then yoga started at 5.
And Rachel, what day was the expo?
Same day, but yoga only lasted an hour. The instructor was fantastic. I've actually used her before. She's from the Tinyasa, whatever spa at the Grand Californian. She was fantastic. It rained on us, so that was interesting. It was 40 degrees and we got rained on. So you can imagine why I have the crud now. 2 races in a week at 2 times getting rained on in 40-degree weather. Super fun. But the yoga was great. They had photo ops afterwards, which they don't have at Walt Disney World. And the yoga mats are thick. They're like the really, really thick kind, which was really nice. And then yoga was done at 6. You had to leave the park, I think, by 6:30, which not a problem. We were all freaking freezing. The expo was that same day, but they were utilizing, as I think we've talked about before, the virtual queue for the Run Disney official merchandise. Expo opens at 10, but the virtual queue, as we are all familiar with, starts at 7. The difference between this virtual queue and the Walt Disney World one is you don't have to say who's in your party. So I said there was 2 in my party, and then Kim said there was 2 in her party. Whereas at Walt Disney World, I would have to select Kim. Right. And Kim wouldn't be able to join her own virtual queue. But instead, we both tried to join the virtual queue and we both got into the virtual queue and we both got very different numbers. I got 36. She got 78. So we were like, okay, great. We know we're not going to get called for a while. Let's just get ready. Let's go to the parks. The park opened at 8. We went to, I think it was California Adventure that day. So we just spent the morning at California Adventure. Around 9:30 is when we headed over to the expo. We got our bibs. We did some photo ops. Lines weren't crazy, but the expo was really small. So it's at the Disneyland Hotel. The Disneyland Hotel is a convention center. The expo floor was like the size of a ballroom. So you've got all of these people plus the Run Disney merch plus the shirt pickup all in one. And it for me, I'm not a lover of crowds and overstimulation. So I had to leave because I'm like, I will wait in this quiet space until my virtual queue is called for Run Disney because it was just too much. I didn't look at any of the booths because I was
the vendors. Yeah. Okay.
I was done. It was way too much. And it's not that it was a different amount of people than Walt Disney World. It was just because it was all crammed into one space. Bye. But it took us about 2 hours to be called for the virtual queue for the Run Disney merch. And remember, I said we were 36. Like, that's not a big number. Right. It took us about 2 hours. And by the time we got there, stuff was already
everything was sold up. Yeah.
All of the pins. So Alonzo got a pin. That one.
The mini metal.
Yeah, the mini metal pin. So it's a pin, but it fits around the new Mimo's heads. All of them were gone except for that one. So that's the only one I got because all of the other ones were gone. The Spirit jersey was still there, but I had pre-ordered that. But by the time my friend went about an hour later, Spirit jerseys only like extra large was left. The lounge fly was sold out. The fanny pack was like lots of stuff was sold out. And it was the first day. only been open a couple hours. It was insane. The problem with virtual queues are anybody can join it. And Disney needs to fix that because shoppers were there filling up carts.
In mass, yep.
Nobody was paying attention to purchase limits because you've got mobile checkout. So just buy whatever you want. It was not great. But the merch was cute. I mean, look at this mug.
Yeah.
Very adorable.
Very like vintage. I got other things, but this is
Yay.
So you talked about Double Dare before. Can you talk about like the different themes really quick?
The different themes.
Yeah, and
For
like
this
options
event,
that you can do.
What were the medals? So Double Dare was Dumbo.
I've got them right here. So the 5K was Chippendale, right? I didn't do that one, so I don't remember.
That sounds right.
I think it was Chippendale. The 10K was Daisy and Donald. Hold on.
Look how cute they are.
Daisy and Donald, and this one is a slider. Mine is very sticky, so it doesn't move very well. But it's very like, the theme was very retro Disneyland, which I appreciate. So that's the 10K, and there's nothing on the back. The half marathon was the one that I had been dying for. It's the classic Disneyland D and Mickey and Minnie Shake. And it's got Sleeping Beauty Castle on it. Nothing on the back. So
I love that one.
Yeah, that one's so good. And then the Dumbo Double Dare, you saw a mini one on Alonzo, but this is the big one. Yeah. And then the thing back here rotates. But this one's really cute. And then the special Coast to Coast medal.
Yeah.
This one looks like a suitcase, and these rotate. And it does have the partner statue on the back.
Nice.
And it has the Disneyland D and the Walt Disney World D. So the Dumbo
How do you
Double
get that?
Dare. Yeah. So the Dumbo Double Dare you only get if you registered for the Dumbo Double Dare and you finished the 10K and the half. If you didn't finish the half, you would still get the medal, but you would not get the Dumbo Double Dare medal. So just FYI on that. The Coast to Coast, this one is special for doing the Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend, an event, a half marathon or greater from that event. And then the Disneyland race weekend the following weekend, doing a half marathon or greater there. So that's why I said I did the half of the weekend before. Yeah. Here's that one. Also Donald and Daisy. And
nice.
They move. And they did say that it would still count because it's not our fault that the weather happened.
Right.
But that's how you got this one. So there is another Coast to Coast medal that'll come out. It looks like a chocolate candy. I hate it. But that's
I was going to say, there's more than one path to getting your Coast to Coast medal.
Yeah. So everybody else who does Disneyland and a future Walt Disney World event will get one that looks like a chocolate candy. Sorry for you. But that's how you do Coast to Coast. You cannot double up. So if so I can't use Disneyland plus, let's say, Princess to get that chocolate medal because I've already used it. So I'd have to do the Halloween one if I want the other Coast to Coast medal this year too. Just a sidebar.
There you go.
Yes.
All right, let's see. And then,
how long did you train?
Well, I'm in perpetual training, so that's a hard question for me. Abby, how did you train? Because I know you were training for this.
Yeah, I mean, I had just been training for Wine and Dine too, so I just sort of kept up like my routine. But in general, I followed the Jeff Galloway method, and I really like his app. So you are practicing on your walk run to sort of keep at a certain pace. I think that is an easy and approachable way if you are not Rachael, who's a marathon runner, to get into these races and not worry about the balloon ladies sweeping you off the course. I think that, you know, there are different things. I know people love Couch to 5K. I know some people plan to walk them. So there are definitely lots of ways to train, but that I loved the Jeff Galloway method, and I just put in my target finishing time and everything gets calculated back from there.
Yeah, I do the modified Galloway method. So I run for 3 minutes and 15 seconds and I walk for 45 seconds. So it's a little different than but still, that's definitely how I train. I do a slightly different training plan than his, just because I have been running for a while and I don't love his training plan for like growing speed and stuff, but I love his training plan for beginner runners. If you haven't done a half marathon before, if you've never done a Disney challenge before, love his training plans. They will definitely set you up for success.
Yeah, and I think also lots of good tips in the runDisney Facebook group. People are planning all different ways. People are very generous about sharing their homemade plans.
Mhm.
And I also think, like Rachel said, like beginners, advanced, you can do it no matter what, just how you're training, and make sure you're simulating, especially getting up early and running 2 long distances in a row.
Yeah, so Abby said anyone can do it. Yeah, because it's a 16-minute mile pace requirement, which is a fast power walk. So especially for the 10K, like you can do a fast power walk. You can do a 16-minute mile, and it's a lot more inclusive than some of the other in general races. So you can do it. A 16-minute mile is not as hard as it sounds.
Okay.
Gotta
So
pretend
we
like you're trying to catch a bus or a train.
Yeah, exactly. The monorail's almost leaving.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. So you told us where you started. How did the flow of the race go? Where did you said you ran through Sleeping Beauty's castle. Tell us what you saw on your race.
So the 10K was the best. The 5K was the best because it started inside Disneyland Park. I didn't run the 5K, but the 10K was the best that I ran because it was inside both parks, but it was like 75% park time, and you wove through the parks really well. So like, I forget the course because they were similar, but they weren't, the half and the 10K. But basically, you ran through California Adventure and then you ran through Disneyland. So we ran through Avenger Campus, we ran through Pixar Pier, we ran by the Reedy Creek stuff, and then we ran across the Esplanade, then into Disneyland. We ran through Galaxy's Edge, we ran through Tomorrowland, we ran through the castle. It's like it's a lot of park time, which is amazing. The 10K was fantastic. They had 7 different character stops on the course, and they did a better job with theming their character stops. So on the 10K, it was all duck characters. So they had, who did they have? Donald and Daisy were out. The Ugly Duckling was out. A character from Chicken Little was out. The one I would have stopped for but didn't because the line was, swear to God, 30 minutes was Ludwig von Drake.
That's
Darkwing
like
Duck and Launchpad Quack together, all 3 of them. But the line, I swear, was like 30 minutes because the weekend before we had waited for Merlin, and that was 25 minutes, and that line was longer than Merlin's line.
Which you have to factor into your mile time, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, whether or not you can stop. Yep.
Yeah, and we had time, but I get stressed and anxiety waiting in super long lines like that. So I'm just like, for my mental health, we're not going to stop, but we're going to run by and say, oh, that was cool. So we actually didn't stop for any characters because that was the only one that had really interested me. But the lines for the characters were ridiculously long. I will say, though, I didn't even mention this. The corral seating was horrible. They did a horrible job. We were in Corral E for the 10K, Corral D for the half. Corral D was where we should have been the whole time because
usually it's the reverse anyway.
Right. If you've run a race before, you know, like when you're properly seated, and what seated means is you're put in a corral with people that should be your pace. So when you're properly seated, you're around the same people basically the whole time. You're seeing the same people basically the whole race because you guys are running the same pace. You're the same. You're where you're supposed to be. But on the 10K, people were walking straight out of the gate. And like, no, we were passing walkers. So that means at mile 2 and 3, we were passing walkers. So that means these people were in like Corral B, and I'm passing you, and I'm in Corral, what did I say, E? So that caused a lot of problems because they did not do their due diligence with seating people. and it caused some issues. The 10K, not so much, but the half. So the half course, if you're used to Walt Disney World, it can be a little bit of a letdown because all your park time is first. And then when you leave the park, you're in Anaheim. The city of Anaheim owns these streets. So there's not going to be characters out there because it's owned by the city of Anaheim, not Walt Disney World. They did have DJs and things like that, performances, which was nice, but it turns into more of a traditional local race, which is fine. They did something really weird, which I didn't love. We ran around the Honda Stadium, which is where they have ice hockey, and then the Angel Stadium, but we were basically making figure eights in the parking lot, which they used to have you run through Angel Stadium. Right. So obviously there was some kind of issue with permits or whatever, and we didn't get to do that, but running through the parking lot was bizarre. But it's a pretty flat course, so there's no going up overpasses. There's none of that banking business. It's compared to Walt Disney World, basically flat, which is nice. Yeah. But again, with the seating issues, so it was a mess. runDisney did not do what they needed to do, or weren't allowed to do what they needed to do, because at the first water stop, it was a mess. It was a mess. People were like stopped, not moving forward, not moving to the forward table. So we had to like bob and weave to get through. And then the next water stop, it was a standstill. We were not moving. And it was because people weren't moving people along, and everybody had stopped at the first tables, and the third, fourth, fifth tables were completely empty. But we, like, I'm not even joking when I say we came to a complete stop. And then we were
I saw pictures. It looked like it.
It was horrible. And then we were like slow walking through, and we get through and we're like, what the actual heck? I think two things. The volunteers weren't properly trained, and there weren't enough volunteers, because this was the second water stop, and one of the tables was completely empty of water, and they were frantically trying to refill cups. Not enough volunteers. So the volunteers weren't properly trained, and there weren't enough. And it was.
Do you know where the water stops are before?
You do?
Yes, they're on.
And I was going to ask you, do you know where the characters are and who's going to be where? Okay.
No. But the water stops, you do know where they are. I don't remember. I don't memorize the course map because I got better things to do with my brain power than memorize the course map. And I just say, oh, water stop, how fantastic.
But like Rachel said, they normally train the volunteers to say, like, keep moving, not this table, not this table. I mean, they have to have time to refill. They have to manage the crowds. It's usually announced that there are more water tables.
Never seen that before. How it was a complete stop. Even if you wanted to run through the middle, no. It was like rope dropping. It's what it felt like. Just a mass of people. It was horrible. So there was a lot of logistic stuff that they need to work out. And the half, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. The entertainment was trash. I was mad. There was 3 character stops.
No.
Yes.
And
the lines were long.
7 at the 10K. And there was 3 at the half. And then there were 2 that you could not stop for. So like we ran past Pirates of the Caribbean, and Goofy was standing on the bridge. You couldn't stop. He was just there. You could wave at him. And then Chip and Dale were at the entrance of Reedy Creek. Like they were there, but you weren't allowed to stop and take pictures with them. Like, what is the point of having them out? It made no sense. And the characters that they had out were not interesting at all. Like I only remember Chip and Dale and Goofy. I don't remember anybody else because I just walked around, breezed by, and I'm like, this was a fail. It was a complete fail. I was pissed. I have no character pictures from either race. And those that run with me know I at least get one. I got none. I was mad. And there was no, we didn't talk about this, but the pre and post, well, it's on here, but we didn't talk about it. The pre and post race areas, everybody hated. The DJ was weird. The DJ was weird. There was no character meet and greets, which, to be fair, in the past, there weren't character meet and greets. So that's not any different from in the past. But they didn't have any photographers at the race finish taking your picture with like the I did it paddles. My God. The I did it paddles or holding your medal, nothing. no photo pass photographers. They had like the medals like you see at the expo at Walt Disney World. They had those big signages up, but there was no photo pass photographers. You had to take your own pictures and just hope for the best. That was so disappointing. That was so disappointing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And the security to get in was another pain point for people. I think that was like, it took us 15 minutes to walk from our hotel to the entrance to the corrals, and it took us another 20 minutes to get through security. But Disneyland security is terrible. Like, it's the old school metal detector crap, and it's not good. And it was just a repeat of that.
Where did you drop your bags and stuff after that?
I refuse to do gear check. I have never used gear check, but there were 2 entrances to the race. We entered the side by the corrals because we weren't checking bags, but if you were, they just had moving trucks similar to Walt Disney World, and you would just gear check on the other side of the corrals. But we didn't do that because I don't like messing with stuff pre and post race. I don't want to go through security and deal with it. I don't want to deal with it after the race. I just want to have my body and go.
If someone was going to do it, what would you say, like, what is in their typical bag, or like what should you not bring with you type of thing?
Less is more. At the marathon, what I'll bring is my OFOS, which are my super comfy post-race recovery shoes. But it was cold, so people were bringing layers. In this case, yes, but maybe it's just me, Abby, maybe you're different, but I don't see what people need to bring to races. Like, what do you need that
I've seen people do this. I'm not really sure either. I always bring I don't bring layers. I bring a space blanket. I do get rid of it before I cross the start line so that my time is unaffected, but that way I am not freezing while I'm waiting in the corral, and I don't have anything to bring afterwards. Your magic band or your phone or your watch, will get you in and out of parks and around, in and out of your hotel rooms.
Yeah, that's like, I never understand gear check and why people do it, especially if you have people cheering you on. Like, why can't the people cheering you on hold your stuff? So I'm the wrong person to ask about gear check because I don't do it, and I'm very confused what people check. So if anybody in the comments wants to say what they bring, I would love to hear it, because I don't know. Anything I need, I fit in my pockets.
So speaking of like crowds and like people cheering on, like where are they allowed to stand during like the races? How does this all work?
Yeah, you could be anywhere in Anaheim on the race course because it's a city and you can be anywhere. You cannot be in the parks. The only part you could be in the parks was the Esplanade, which is open to the public, which is the basically thoroughfare between California Adventure and Disneyland. So people could be there. And then they could be at the start and finish line because it was just like Epcot in the same spot. So they could be there. But they could not be in the park. They're not allowed on Main Street. Just like at Walt Disney World you are, but you can't be. It's a smaller park, so probably logistic wise. But there was a ton of people down the Esplanade, but that was it. So the spectators were not as great, but it's okay. We can't hold.
And at Disney World, there are designated spectator areas. Were there any of those on the course?
I don't think so.
All right.
Aside from the Esplanade, I don't think so.
Right.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So any other timing and balloon ladies. Let's talk about the balloon ladies. We talked about them briefly earlier. What are they?
Balloon ladies. Yes,
What's
they
their history?
Well, they are unofficial, but they start dead last. They're in the last corral. They're the last people to start. Well, technically, if you're super late, maybe there's people behind them, but they're the last people to start, and they maintain a 16-minute mile pace. So if those lovely balloon ladies, and they're called balloon ladies because they have those big Disney balloons, so you very much see them.
Can't miss them.
Uh-huh. If they pass you, that's because you've fallen behind the course, official course pace requirement, and you are in jeopardy of being swept. So Disney has an obligation to open their parks, open the streets. They can't just let you be running this half marathon for your whole life. They have to get stuff reopened. So if you fall behind them, you run the risk of being swept, which means you're removed from the course and you don't get to officially finish. Which it sounds scary, but these ladies start dead last. So if you're in corral D, they're in corral G, you get automatically like a 10-minute buffer. So if you're maintaining a 15, and Jeff Galloway tells you to train for a 14-minute mile, which I agree with. So if you're maintaining a 14-minute mile and you have a 10-minute buffer, you're fine. You know, just don't stop in that 30-minute line for Launchpad and Quack. But stop at other things. So yeah, that's the balloon ladies. And something else I want to mention, again, logistics that they better fix. The PhotoPass photographers were severely lacking.
Yeah, that's bad.
Severely. Like, I think there was 3 points in California Adventure and 3 points in Disneyland that had PhotoPass photographers. And it was just, there was a lot of frustrations. I'm really glad that Disneyland Racing is back, but there's a lot of stuff that they need to fix, because for that price point, it ended up being a disappointment. I'm glad I did it. I love Disneyland. I love running at Disneyland. The weather is amazing. You get a lot of park time, especially with the 10K, but there's a lot of stuff they need to fix.
Well, hopefully in time for the next race, which is just coming up. We're coming right up in September.
Yeah, and they sent out surveys and got feedback. So hopefully they'll take all that feedback, and they usually do, and get stuff fixed. But I think they're going to need more volunteers. But some overall tips, we've kind of talked about the courses and stuff like that. We've talked about costumes and stuff in previous episodes, so we won't really go into that this time, but dress up and have fun. You don't necessarily need to stay on site. We didn't. I stayed at the Westin. There's a lot of really good hotel options within walking distance. Just pick your favorite. I really enjoyed the Westin. I'd probably stay there again. Maybe next time the JW, because it's right at the start line. But yeah. And if you're wanting merch at the expo, you need to get there probably Wednesday night. So you're there Thursday to get merch you want. But until they work some of the kinks out with the races, just be super, super patient. I think it's going to take them maybe two more race weekends to really work everything they need to out. So just super pack your patience with the parks as well. Mind your feet, because if you go to the parks afterwards, I always walk more at Disneyland than I do at Walt Disney World. So just be mindful of that, so you're not exhausting yourself before you run these back-to-back races. So, you know, do your early nights. Don't go crazy with the steps, because you can. Like at Disneyland, my average is 8 miles. At Walt Disney World, my average is 6. So yeah, just in general. And watch your fueling. I know it's really tempting to have all the really good sugary, beautiful drinks and cocktails and milkshakes, but just be mindful of that, because enjoying all the amazing food at Disneyland, highly recommend, but also watch your overall nutrition until the races are over. So that way you're not getting sick on the course, because yeah. And by sick, I mean like throwing up. This you can't help. This nasal crap you can't help, but the gastric stuff you can. So just be mindful of the food you're eating before the race weekend.
Yeah, don't puke in the corrals.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Well, thank you so much for your race recap.
Yeah, I wish it was a little more fun, but hopefully next future races at Disneyland we'll be able to say, guess what? They fixed all these things. It's amazing. Exactly. I do recommend it. I do recommend Disneyland, like I said, for all the things, but they have a little work to do, which any race that's been gone for 7 years, it's going to have work they need to do. So they'll fix it. Don't worry. They'll fix it. Disney always does. It'll be even better next time.
I have no doubt.
Yay.
Thank you.
Well, join us next time.
Yeah, and thank you to our sponsor, Wave of a Wand. If you have a race weekend coming up, definitely reach out to them so they can help you with even more tips and tricks. And make sure to like, follow, comment, share, all the good stuff. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another fun episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Where's my stop recording button?